Actually, there is a great plan work.
Well,
At
he'd
least
bring
two
home what I
big
liked,
winners from yesterday.
and
Yeah.
it became something we just. Eventually, I'm collecting them and then sharing with them. And teaching them not to bend over it just right.
Now we can move the TV a
And
little
teach
bit
my
further this
kids.
direction so you can stand next to it.
So they're in great shape. My 60s,
we do have-
I have to sell those. And I went skiing.
We have microphone.
You learn to draw, you learn an artist. Well,
It's trying to detect device again.
and I got good to the next condition. Yeah. Wow, fun. And it's like several $1,000s.
Ooh.
And
Everybody go home.
then sold some.
Well, that was a quick panel.
And then my collection now goes from, it used to go from like 64, 63, 64 on that when I was a kid dad. Now it's complete from 78 to today. And just last year, just last year, it's like, it was only but you're now more expensive than
Look, DeForest.
I used to have 30, and now all in that garage, all stacked up, hermetically sealed. And then you just play with them again.
Just unplug your pin.
Because,
No, I mean, just unplug it all, or the HDMI, either one.
I know, and then this, and then I'll never come
last
back.
year,
And then you'll have your.
I went to
No, I know, but I'm saying the minute you do that,
I enjoy reading them.
you're always.
Space-wise and everything.
I know.
Bless you. It's me the comics kind of thing, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, that was when you,
Like,
that's when
you're
you,
right.
that's when your
I'm
previous
running-
computer was new.
putting this in the bed and all that, and I've got it all organized. But now, if I travel everywhere,
This one,
This way you can see what you're looking at.
and then.
Marvel Universe, DC Infinite.
Have you gone back then?
I have.
That's cool.
I've gone back to some
Yes, you
of the
don't
ones
even have to mess them up now to read them, right? Or,
I can go find them online. They're on DC Universe, for instance. It's like, you know, when you're
Okay, Larry, is your process of
the
deleting?
first 20 years of my life, and I just see them. I remember every color.
wow.
Everything.
That's super
It's a little
cool.
harder today because you get right into it, you know.
Right. Still, that's super cool.
But the collectible nerd in me, when I see a cover or something that I really like, I just capture the page, and it becomes my home page for my
Like your
you know,
background.
Hello.
Exactly. Love it. It's fun. It's always keep one page on my tablet that's just me, and that's my home page. Then I go find DC and Marvel and stuff. I got those tabs, you know. But I will just regularly pick out and see something I like. And I'll display that way.
I like your com badge.
Some of the world's
That is so
finest
neat.
that Mark Wade's doing right now. It's
I'm literally moving a
awesome
photo
covers
to
and
the
beauties.
slideshow
And they've
where it should go
kinda
right to the first slide.
been my
and then
tablet
flies inside.
covers.
So the real
And I'll
one
change it up just.
must have been highlighted and when we were back there, it got deleted out of the thing, which is fine. I just went right-
Wow, yeah. Just rotate it. Do you have something that rotates them?
Yeah,
No,
twice.
I just find something.
No, this is gonna be.
Just stick it on there.
Slide.
I'll drink this.
Part of the collectible
Give you a little bit more wiggle room on your microphone.
That's cool. I gotta love that.
It does this detecting thing, and then it says, if it's on my computer, do this, so that goes there.
And then of course.
Ooh, there you go.
Sure.
Love it. That's fun.
Okay. I'm determined. Okay, it's only 11:03, so I'm sorry to be starting so early.
Yeah, just stay there.
Okay, happy Sunday, everybody. Okay, I am just looking. I was gonna give the prize for the person under 20, but I don't think, okay.
Mentally or
Yeah,
physically?
Yeah. So this, I feel like this is like the only actual panel. Although, you know, panel means panel discussion, which means more than one person. And thank you, MediaCons, for saying, oh, have you gone to Robert Beltran's panel? How can it be a panel if there's only one person on it? That drives me crazy. So this is like feels like the only real content panel. So yay for Sundays at 11 a.m. Yay, everybody's so excited. Everybody had it good? It's Sunday, Larry, shut up. So this was the only like real, oh, here's stuff happening lately, and it's great because it doesn't quite feel this way, but Picard's dead and Discovery is dead, And so all the creatives, even though the last season of Discovery won't be aired until, or streamcast until next spring now, to celebrate the end of the thing they canceled because the streaming world is in chaos and everybody's cutting back. And actually Paramount Plus has not been the worst of them, but now they're not the Netflix. Netflix caused this, and Netflix caused the writer's strike, mainly. And Netflix set the tone that everybody else thought they had to follow. And they were all, like Silicon Valley guys, not Hollywood people. Oh, well, okay. For some reason, this is coming up, we're losing like intensity. Like if you see the picture here, it's much more saturated than this is. And Paramount Plus wasn't, but now that Paramount Plus is trying to valiantly cut things back, so they cut off the last season of Discovery, which 80% of the world was not, all that choked up about.
Your computer fell asleep.
Yeah. Okay. They are mad about the Prodigy cancellation because there's 20 episodes that were ready to go, and they're like, and so suddenly the whole world of Trek, even if they weren't Prodigy fans, and they should have been, because it's not just for kids. Now they're going, well, what if and Prodigy's like winning award. Prodigy's art director won an Emmy, and Prodigy just got nominated by the television critics, the TCA, for best. They were like one of 8 nominees for best family programming. So it's like, well, what if it's really good stuff anyway, and you take it away? And so now they're like, well, we all love Strange New Worlds. Are you going to take that away just because you need a tax write-off? So anyway, it's kind of weird. They've gone from, oh look, all Trek all year, 52 weeks a year, we had fresh Trek, to it's like the good old days in the 70s when people were bashing Paramount again. It's funny. What goes around comes around. Anyway, what's amazing is the streaming world everybody's getting used to is people can be excited. The world melted down when Patrick Stewart stood on stage at Vegas Trek in 2017, and Twitter just hashtag Picard for like 24 hours. And then you get to the first season, and people are like, oh, this is what you did with it? Many people. I keep hearing the quiet people say, I really liked it being new characters. But that, and then the second season, and you had different people, and the streaming years, they're so short, like these 10-episode seasons, but they happen like a year apart. And it's not like the old days, we'd have 26 shows, because the same 6-8 writers were in a room together for like 9 months. And what is with the wiring?
This is all one big room.
Oh, they're doing
So
it next door and
one
you're
adjustment
connected.
box takes care of everything.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm flashing back to the Sheraton in the center in Midwest City in the first year when they had to turn something down in the entire ballroom. All 4 ballroom sections had to go down. And, yeah.
That's basically what
Ooh,
it
it's
is.
2011
First
again.
week,
Yeah.
adjustments.
So anyway, the same, like 6 or 8 guys, and maybe one gal, maybe, were in the room, and then you had 3 months off, and then you came back for 9 months, and and the shooting, you wrote for a month or 2, and then they started shooting after that, and then the post-production, the visual effects and sound were the last people to go home. But you would start.
It's your
It's your blue screen of life. But you know what I'm saying? It was like a compressed schedule. You'd start writing, a couple months later you'd start shooting, and 6 months later you'd air the first one, and they would air, and then by the time everybody went on vacation, there were 2 or 3 more to show, and so they weren't in the offices when the last 1 or 2 showed, and that was a nice, it all made sense. And then now you have 10 shows, you apparently have 27 executive producers, and there's no freelance almost, and if there's any name you don't know, it's because it's a writing assistant who's working the ladder and climbing, and there's no like freelance pitching like the old days when Michael Piller let fans pitch ideas, and sometimes you had budding writers in that, but at least you got ideas you could take and run with. But it's like they write for a year, and then they film 9 months later, and most of the time the writers are all done, and some of the shows, part of the writer's strike issues are people that wrote. They don't shoot the shows until a year later, and the writers are all maybe even working on another show by then. And they're not there to be on set and rewrite. So like 1 or 2 of the head writers do all the rewrites during filming. And then it may not get shown for a year. So it's like people are talking now, doing interviews like, well, I know we shot this a year ago, I have to remember. And it's like, what was the writing like? Oh, that was a year and a half ago. I can't remember now. It's insane. But one of the things, because of that system, you can have a situation where many people looked at the first season of Picard and went, well, okay. Well, I liked the Pente when you had Riker and Troy in there, and that Lulu Wilson played their daughter. It was amazing. Hope we have more of them. And then the second season is like a totally different vibe and a lot more fun stuff to it, but still some low places. And then third season Picard, people are like, I'm sorry, was that the same show? It's almost like they're different, or at least the first 2 seasons are a series and the third one. So, on the upside of things, one thing that happened was, so Terry Matalas. The first season was Michael Chabon and Akiva Goldsman, and they launched Picard. And it went the way it went, and Michael Chabon is, his book that he's doing, he left to go really make a movie out of his book, which is a time travel alternate future. I keep wanting to say Cassius and Clay, but that's not it. It's something in Clay with a C a little bit. And they hired Terry Matalas, who I knew when he was an intern on Voyager, and with the post-production, and then he was Brandon Braga's assistant for long-suffering assistant. Get my laundry, get those 5 girls tickets to Hawaii. Oops, did I say that? Okay. But he was a serious writer. He actually pitched and sold a couple of scripts near the end of Enterprise. You can find his name then. And then he went on and and then he wound up getting to run a show called 12 Monkeys, which was adapted from the movie. And that went 4 or 5 seasons, and you should go watch that, not only because it's pretty well done, and it's all about alternate universes and quantum universes and crazy stuff happening back and forth, but it also had a lot of the same people behind Ed in front of the camera that he wound up bringing to Picard. So, third season, and second season starts off, it's in COVID. Sir Patrick is getting older. They start to work on the second season, and Terry has already said, I want the third season. Patrick had to get over. The first thing Patrick said was, I'll do this show in the beginning, but I don't want to just keep doing more TNG, which pissed a lot of people off because they thought it would be bright, happy captain and a bright, happy bridge with a bright, happy crew around him doing bright, happy adventures every week. And that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to, say Wolverine. He wanted to, make the latter day character. But after they got that out of their system for a couple of years, Terry said, okay, I think it's now we have to have a thing that brings everybody together, but not like the class reunion. It's like we have to have an organic adventure that we eventually wind up with everybody. So that at the end of it, we've got everybody together, but for a good reason. So that's why the seasons are so different on Picard, and that's why seemingly most people really enjoyed season 3. But what happened on season 2 was Terry came to the series then. COVID was happening. Sir Patrick said, this is really exhausting, and COVID's out there, and maybe we should do these back to back. And they're only 10 episodes. So a 20-episode run is less than they used to do in the old days, except they're making them all like mini movies now. So that each show is taking like 10 days to shoot instead of the old 7 days. So there's that. And they can do much more with CG and set extensions and all that. So they feel more cinematic than they ever could do on the old. So they ran back to back. So the same people were working behind the scenes on both seasons, which included a guy named Dave Blass, and I want to talk about that. And he was a rebel from half of the complaints about modern Trek since Discovery. Dave would have an answer for it, and I've had him as a guest on Portal 47 twice, and he got to Vegas last year. And the world, thanks to social media, is aware of his very simple premise, which is he's a fan. It's not his job he would say this, he said this, basically, it's not my job to reinvent the wheel because I want to put my own spin on it. It's my job to take their wheel and their spin that came before us and tweak it just a little bit for the story and update for the materials and the tech you can do today. So that's why people watch Picard, even second season, and we're like, oh my God, this feels like Star Trek again. So, having said that, hello.
Did you get that answer about why the Stargazer didn't keep its number or something?
So what?
Yesterday in your thing, somebody asked why Kevin was talking about, someone asked why the Stargazer didn't keep its number.
No
Oh, I
answers.
totally forgot to do that.
Okay.
Okay, when this panel is over, remind me. I will text him and I will try to have the answer by closing ceremonies. Okay? But remind me when we get out of here. I may get excited to go see how Alice did in the costume. But, sorry.
What's she dressed
I
as?
sincerely meant to do that. And I think he would sincerely get back. We're trying to get him to Vegas right now, so on Sunday. Anyway, so having said all that, oh, by the way, I'm learning to check. I wrote this
We're in the first two Soonercons back in the day.
yes, well, found it. Okay, interviewing behind the scenes, blah, blah, blah. Take a track on tracks, would be some time to come to LA, blah, blah, blah. Portal 47, there's Mike McMahon from Lower Decks. Here's all that. This is what you couldn't see in that other room. So this is like a sample of the behind the scenes people we've had, all from writers and producers. So Steve D'Erico was a security guard on Ladder Voyager and all of Enterprise. And this guy is like a memory machine. First of all, he was security guard and very cool and kept people away. But he took 47 million selfies with everybody and their dog's dog walker, and has the stories up here. He's amazing. So here's Dave Glass. The first time I met Dave Glass, thank you. So John Eves, the great designer over here, called me and said, "Hey Larry, there's like the 25th anniversary of First Contact's coming up, and nobody, the studio's not doing anything about it. Nothing's happening. I was thinking maybe we get some of the guys together, and you could you lead a Zoom panel?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." So he got everybody together, and what I didn't realize at the time, and this is John. So here's Mike and Denise Sakuda, Jim Vanover, who's just had a cancer scare, is getting over it. Doug Drexler, John, Ben Betts, who ran video. And this is John Goodson, who I had not met, but he worked in the model shop of ILM and built the Excelsior model for Star Trek III and several many things, and did some of the model work that was model work on First Contact. So they all actually worked on First Contact to be a 25th anniversary thing, except Dave. And I was like, well, Dave's the production designer on this. I didn't want to say, why are you having him? Well, for two reasons. One, he was a huge fan. I didn't know at the time that the Borg Queen was going to be so much of season 2. And he was researching all that. And number 3, all of them were working for him on Picard because he had reached out because he's a fan and he got it. And he was like, he knew exactly why people were pissed at Discovery. It was all stuff he put it. In fact, I said, why didn't you throw your resume in for production designer on Picard, on Discovery? And he goes, I did.
Oh.
And I said, how much grief would they have saved if you had been the production designer on? Because he would have at least modified what Brian wanted, and then when Brian Fuller was gone, he would say, okay guys, let's fix all this stuff. I know, we didn't really spend $6 million on that Klingon set. We could really have money to do this. But he's an old Herman Zimmerman, John Dwyer type who would take the duct tape and baling wire and make something awesome out of it, and dumpster scrounge and whatever. So that was the first time I met him, and that night we pulled out a short, and that's what he said, basically, it's not my job to reinvent the wheel and put my stamp on it. It's my job to take their stamp, oh my God, and make it, live for today, for today's story. So I love this because I didn't even think about it until just now, but it's a perfect intro to that. So, this is me on the center seat, if you didn't see this. So I have a bunch of these because for a long time, like I said, everything was chaotic, and there was the crisis of the week every time Discovery would air, and even the first Picards. And this is funny because for most people, season 3, like I said, even. Season 2 started down that road at the beginning. People were on the Stargazer ship. People were saying, oh my God, now this is more like it. It just felt Starfleety. It's because this team, and a lot of other people, not just the old veteran Star guys, but a whole modern team. And Picard, because of Sir Patrick's insistence, Picard was actually made in LA, in Santa Clarita. So everything else modern has been in Toronto. Dave told me that it basically costs the same 10 shows. It costs about 4 times more to make it in LA than in Toronto. Same scale, scope of shipping, just because of the cost, which is stupid. And California let so much of the film market get away. They're creeping back toward giving, business side tax credits. But that's why so much is left LA. And by God, I don't care if you have to pay for Star Trek or not. What God intended was for Star Trek to be made in LA. That is what God intended. Not so much that Star Trek be free. Somebody's like, God meant for Star Trek to be free. No, God meant for Star Trek to be made in Los Angeles. Anyway, so this is a funsy thing. This is like the old days when I would do these kinds of things. So this is like the stage plan of This is for season 2, but they're in Santa Clarita, which is just 10 miles north of where I live. But this is kind of so the solarium from season 2. Now I'm backtracking a little bit because I had these. So the whole my mom hanged herself. Oops, spoilers. Solarium thing in Picard season 2 was here, but then on the Stargazer set, this is the sick bay, the crew quarter room in the hallway, and this is the dungeon/wine cellar. So the cop evidence room, which was really sad. And then this is the Stargazer Bridge, which when you saw it and you went, they used this for like an episode and a half, and they spent all this time and money on this amazing, beautiful bridge. I wonder if they're going to repurpose this later. And they did. But this is like the lounge, the bridge, and a piece of corridor with a turbo engine in. So yeah, basically this all got reused for 3, and this became the Titan Bridge with very few modifications. Change out the acoudigrams, and oh look, it's a different bridge. And a few other things too. And the red door was basically, so all that stuff with the windows and the corridor on season 3 on the Titan, it was basically that. Now there's another stage that has all the other new sets they built, which we'll see. So, moving on to season 3, they basically, season 2 went along and people felt good about the Stargazer and all that, but a lot of the rest, and all those alternate futures were cool, and it's the fake future, it's the fake fascist future, it's the real past, it's the fake fascist past. It's like there's 5 timelines. Halfway through, and you think, oh, that's Terry Matalas because he did 12 Monkeys, and that's what actually, he wrote about 2 or 3 episodes actively. They made the plan to shoot back to back. He wanted to focus on the Picard reunion season, and so basically he was still there, but he stepped back and went off in a dungeon and wrote all of season 3 and worked with the writers for season 3. So as the further season 2 went along, he had less to do with it actively because he had to have everything ready to go. And the art department did all this stuff knowing that, there's a very special set that you see. Has everybody seen Picard season 3? Otherwise,
No.
I'm just spoiling the hell out of it.
Go ahead.
Okay,
I'll get it
fine.
on DVD when
Okay.
it comes out.
There's a very special reveal for the last couple of episodes, right, of Picard. They basically worked on that the entire time they were shooting season 2 because they had to. And that's how they were able to do it, and even then it was a madhouse. And they were like, and we'll get into that here real quick. But just at least at the beginning of season 2, there's a tone. It's not just the shiny bridge, it's like everything felt like it was next-gen level, or DS9 Voyager level upgrade, especially Herman Zimmerman era as the art production. So, beginning of season 3 starts off with the Crusher's little medical ship, right? Their little Doctors Without Borders kind of ship, the Helios 12. And so, and they're going back to using like plastic cases, even though it's supposed to be 20. And these suckers, they had these these go back to like Wrath of Khan, right? They had them manufactured just because they felt right. But that's the kind of, and they're just, these are just like regular metal tables and crap, and they're but they threw some things in there that you thought, okay, that looks familiar. And they would, do acoudigram labels, and you'll see that.
What's
So this
an
is, I didn't even do
acoudigram?
the bridge, I just got that in here.
Hey, Larry.
Larry.
Yes.
There was a question about what is an acoudigram.
Oh, so you'll see many of them, but basically acoudigram is the short name. I found out the other day, Mike said it, just the other day, John Dwyer gave it that name. So Mike Akuda came up with that whole graphic system for Next Generation and onward, where it looks like it's a working computer system from the future, with the T-bars. Yeah, the L-cars. Yeah. Now everybody, do you know what L-cars means?
Library, computer, access.
Library, computer, access, and retrieval system. Yes, everybody now goes to L-cars. Okay, well.
Will Wheaton actually
the old-
came up with that name.
Yeah. They were back in first season Next Gen. The acoudigrams name just stuck. Like the panel, if there's ever a panel you actually have to take off and there's wiring and guts underneath it, that's a Meese panel for Jimmy Meese. Because every time they'd be doing a script in a production meeting and they'd be going along, and the narrator's reading and he says, and Geordi walks over to the panel and removes it, and Jim Meese would go, okay, do we have to see what's inside the panel? Yeah, he has to work on it. He really has to work on it, yeah. Okay, well there's 1,000 right there. Can we cut it? They're budgeting as they walk through. And he would always go, okay, how much of it do we see? So those panels became Mies panels, which was kind of a nod to. But it's like Jeffries too, like Matt Jeffries. So anyway.
Also, the Akutogram sometimes have fun and little league jokes.
Yes, and then, so since Mike and whoever is under him, Jim Vanover or Jeff Mandel maybe, yeah, the little in-jokes are in there. Yeah. Now, less in the era of HD because they know everything is going to be seen. But then again, there are selected times when they intentionally. Now it's almost like the in-jokes are intentionally there and they make the in-joke thing. So, on the Titan this year when they made more sets, because it was basically a bottle show, if you think about it. They went to the space station and they had view screen scenes, other things, but basically the whole season is running around on the Titan itself or on a ship that can be redressed out. So this is the nacelle control room, and they started to build it exactly like the D, where the guy jumped into the plasma stream and killed himself. Late Next Generation show in Thy Image. No, Eye of the Beholder. But they didn't have the space or the budget to build a 2-story set. So they compromised. But Dave was gonna like build something that looked like an echo of the set, but that's the way Dave's mind works, i.e. any of us. Not a designer coming into it and going, I'm going to do some research and then I will design sets. It'll be just awesome and I'll be in the Emmys. No, Dave comes at it like, okay, what did they do? What have we seen before? Okay, of course, the cell control in Next Gen. It was historic then. Anyway, and this was a unit that Liz Koskowski, there were 3 art directors under Dave. And Liz was one, and she was the hugest fan herself. And she got all the cool stuff, including the Enterprise D bridge. So that was like her 3rd set. And so these are all her pieces. But like the live effects crew, visual effects, graphics, everybody worked on this panel. Anyway, this is the crew quarters that got redressed for different people. This is the dressing for Shaw's, when it was Shaw's quarters, Captain Shaw's quarters. But it, and everybody has laughed about the shiny floors, and a lot of fans get really upset about the shiny floors, and part of that's practical because the camera cranes can run around on them a little easier than the carpet. At least that was the 2020's thinking. And what's funny is when they finally did the D bridge and it had carpet and people are running around on it and rolling around on it, and a lot of the newer crew are going, oh, well, this isn't so bad. Like, don't tell fandom that, they'll leave. There was a whole thing about, there's a reason the department stores have rugs down, because you're running, you skid, how do people avoid accidents? So it's a transporter room. It looks like a transporter room. Why is this such a hard concept? It's even like got the DS9 looking, but it's got all the control, the console bay. But they're using the clear screens because they do look cool. But instead of just throwing them in there like a Discovery Bridge, they're kind of adding them in instead of making them old. And this is kind of this is their sick bay, and there's some wacky things that look rented over here. But it's like the beds, but they're using an exam thing right there instead of having to have a unit for each one, unless it's the hardcore. But this is like really a nod to Voyager's little surgical bay over there. But it looks like, okay, this is 30, 40 years past what you last saw in all the series. It makes sense. And these little suckers definitely look like Starfleet beds. So this is the other side. Oh, this is the crew quarters when it's set up for crew quarters. When Riker and Picard got sentenced to bunk beds, this is the room the way it was there. Yeah, this is the joke about the shiny floors that have to be made. But this is that corridor where they use the portals along the wall. This is just how they would, like when they had the brig, they would take the Y junction and put a wall plug back here. It's the same old, get a mile's worth of use out of the same set. I don't like the glary either, but that's where they were. Oh, this is everybody this is the
Putting it together.
yeah, well, this is this is where they brought the Klingon cloaking generator from the bounty in and hooked it into the system eventually. But when you first this is also where they're working on nacelle control to release the nacelle covers and the changeling spoiler and the changeling I started to say Burton's sister. The changeling LaForge sister comes in and they figure out it's a changeling and kill her. They're all working on this then, and then later on they tie in the Klingon cooking. to make that with all the stuff that had to be like live and accessible, this is the shot. There was four different crews are working at the same time on top of each other, and that was a funny shot. And it's in the shop, see, it's not on the set, it's still in the shop. But they love it.
Got it up on blocks.
So starting, here's the thing also about Dave, not only like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, take the old wheel and just make it a little newer in ways. He also knew about ship porn and all the ship nerds and the tech heads. And even in season 2, when the flotilla is first like defending against the vortex and the Borg come out of it, and then at the end when they're all like they're all working together against the vortex, like they made sure to have, not only to use all different kinds of ships, different classes, and not have the cut and paste ship mistake of the first season, but they went to so Dave goes to trouble, even if not in the moment, by the time the show airs, he is like, they make sure with a different class. They keep up, and he has got every ship like named with an NCC number and the class name, so that by the end of it, and he's asking around, he's asked me 3 or 4 times, in fact, oh, I didn't put it in here, damn it. Well, he's made sure that everything has a name, and he's not only going back into Star Trek history, he's honoring people around fandom and history. Anyway, and if you're following, and you do this, follow his Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, he's posting these when the shows air. And he'll go through and say, well, you may not have noticed it, but at the time the Titan left orbit of Earth, there were 3 ships in orbit, and here they are. And you know, it might be the USS Trimble and the USS Laurel for the Klingon Chancellor, but he's like consulted and named things after the fact and given them a number. And the ship, and he's reached out to Star Trek Online, and they've had 4 of their ships be on screens and canonized. So the gamers love it. Just the ship nerds love that, and he loves it because that's 4 ships they didn't pay anybody to, like, why? He was saying, why are we using what's out here? Because they're all experts and people love their stuff. Why are we not putting it on screen? Like, it's just, you know, the tin forward Guinan bar that was a pop-up, and they took it to some cons and they had it in LA. But the Guinan tin forward, and they reused it in season 3 a little. They were going to recreate that to have it at cons and promos. And the people from the event company showed up at the sets when they were done with it, and they were measuring everything and taking photos for reference to rebuild it. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And then it says, "No, I know what you're doing, but why? We're about to tear this down. Why don't you just take it?" And they were like, "Can we do that?" And he called, and it's like, "Yeah, we're about to like trash this because we don't, you know, it's a." So they're like, so they got like approval like that to just load it up and take it, like strike the set and take it for, you know. So we went to LA downtown, and then it went to Comic-Con, and then it went to Vegas. But it's like, hello, can we just like think of simple things like this? Anyway. So they saved a ton of money they were going to spend on building it and put it into more, you know, caps and t-shirts and stuff. Come on. But this is the thing. So then not only did they do all that, but he did a guide and had the ship's number and said, okay, for all of you wondering, here's what all the names anyway. But this was season 2, just for that. And so it was like amped up on steroids for season. No. Jesus. Okay, season 2 also, this was nothing with the Dark Department, but you did see the punk on the bus.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Same guy. So this is on Star Trek Strike Day at Paramount. So Terry Metalis, I've been bragging on him, but I'm like, well, I remember Terry when he was just a Voyager intern in post-production. And if anybody deserves something for putting up with Brandon for 5 years, it's Terry. But he's done all this himself. So credit all the, and Terry's the one, he and Dave, like he's the head writer, Dave's the production designer, but they're both fanboy nerds. And all this stuff, they're like, oh yes, and is there a way we can find the money? So some things, like having Kira rescue Ro at the last second and beam her off the shuttle before it crashed into the nacelle, that was an intended thing. They didn't have the money for that. Or having Admiral Janeway give Seven her promotion at the end. But they had money to squeeze out for things like this. So this is an homage to the Generation stellar cartography thing. But when they're at the station and they find data, this is totally a rebuild of the old data frame that Lal was in. It's meant to be an homage to that, but it's like, you know, and so they just did that, but they did it in a little higher frame. This is one of the actual data heads that Mike Westmore still had.
Wow.
And they used it on set.
Nice.
But it's like stuff like that. So this was actually the grungy city. This is Umtalis Prime, City 6. And so this was not a gleaming, stuff. This is Kit Stolen, who did this art direction, not Liz. But there's a Quarks. So Quarks is apparently franchised out. There's Quarks all over the place, and you saw them in first season on Picard. And Lower Decks has had Quarks licensees around. This is Dave Glass's wife, who's a singer and a model.
All right.
And he got her into the Orion Girl. So here's you've got Klingon and Romulan and I forget what language. Anyway, so this is like the food table, and there's some giant
Gah.
rock. Yeah.
Newspaper.
And so this is like behind the bar at the Ferengi that gets killed, beheaded. But it's a very Quarks looking, ship. And so, hold on a minute.
Is
So
that
this
a golden
again,
quark?
There's a rules of acquisition. What's going on here? I thought there was a Kanar bottle in here, maybe somewhere else. Yeah. Anyway, some things are definitely made or even remade from. You enjoying this? Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're here. And some of the stuff was from. They even worked with Star Trek wines when they were researching a bottle. They would do a bottle and then give it to Star Trek wines. So it's like just common sense stuff. Like, why can we do this all over? So, and there's his wife all over. But this is that cafe, using Ferengi and different languages and stuff. It's kind of like the old mall display on DS9. Oh my God. Okay. But this is a longer shot. So here's the crew down here. But this is how big the set was.
Look bigger on screen.
Yeah. This was actually outdoors at the lot. It wasn't out on location somewhere, but they went to a parking lot at Santa Clarita Studios and built this. So again, this is the ships in season 3, but they went to the trouble to go, here's all the classes. Some of them are new, some of them the 4 came from the game, and some of them are old, tried and true. And it's just, comparing them all the way down to and here's the Defiant. But that's the care they went to on the side. Weren't getting paid for that. And then so the final big attack scene at the end, and people were trying to decide these are basically supposed to be Borg characters, how they formed that way, kind of like iron filings on a magnetic, effect. Anyway, all these ships, I laughed, I saw this going up. Okay, either they or some fan is going to have every single one of these ships named and numbered and classified. And York, who works on Memory Alpha, had, and he and Dave worked together, and they did. So I was laughing within 10 days it had been done. So another thing is this is on the Titan Bridge, and so they've got out. This is on the side you rarely saw, and this came from Bill Krause, who was a high-end fan ship designer, and they saw his stuff and used a couple of his ships on the show. But anyway, so you start off here, Captain Liam Shaw, Commander Annika Hansen, but you start getting into crew names and people's names. So Bill, this is from Bill, and he was like, look, who let this guy on the bridge?
Interesting that there's no Delta shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some of Liz's pictures. This is just the crew that madly worked on. I'm going to shift into the D bridge because that's what everybody loves. So I'm just going to flip through these. I haven't met the people personally. I'd love to, so I can't off the top of my head.
That's heavy duty industrial cylinder.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they're
That
doing.
machine.
They, the way things are, they were recreating the D bridge, so they're going back to sets from the 80s, and fabric everywhere, and the carpet, and they were laughing. Some of these new kids, well, I'll show you that. So, Mike, this is off Mike's thing. So this is the little sidecar benches where Beverly or Guest, which if you went to the experience in Las Vegas, they omitted these. It was just the 3 chairs. But on the real bridge, there was that little chair at the side where Beverly on one end and somebody else on the other would sit. So the little thing for the little sidecar had if you looked at the show, this was just black plexi. They never used it. But Mike Akuda said, they'd always intended for those to be cup holders. So, Andy wanted those to have cup holders, but they never did it. So when they redid this, they didn't mold a piece, but they drew the line. That was a quick and fast. So here, they're working. These are the forms for back in the back. This is just a shop working. There's a chair going together, and then all the ribs, in the ceiling piece, the spire, whatever they're calling it, putting it together, and painting and getting all that together. And then but it started with the what they call it, the oculus eye. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the big circle that everything bridged out of in the ceiling piece was huge, and they almost realized they were, so it became a whole thing to build the thing and then get it over to the
Almost as big as a
stage.
Stargate.
Yeah.
Everybody dropped everybody dropped what they were doing to get it on the truck, like they're documenting all the shit. And then getting it, and then here's how the stage was built, and having to get it up there because they haven't put it in the ceiling in yet. Anyway, and it got there. So this turned into a whole thing. Nobody realized, they were laughing, going, even the view screen frame had carpet on it. And I was like, yeah. So it became, so the carpet, they started off, they were like not painting it, so they brought the regular like carpeting people, not the set people or painters, but the carpet people who would normally just put the carpets on the floor, and did. But they were, and so they were like custom, how all these compound curves and cutting pieces that bend, and like how hard that was, but they did it, and you saw these, they're putting it, they had to put the foam down just like it was floor carpet. Anyway, I just love this because they just documented the hell. They literally, and they did this like in 9 months, and it took all 9 months to get it, and they were racing the clock, just like,
Remember,
And-
Warwick walked in and said, "I missed the carpet."
Yeah. No, there was all this meta going on. When he said, I missed the carpet, that was for all the fans.
I knew that.
Who said, really shiny floors, bring back the carpet. Yeah. Okay. So this is them. So here's Liz, here's Dave, and here's Mike and Denise. Here's Doug Drexler. There's Jeff Mandel, Ben Betts, Todd Marks, who was on video, who worked on the. And this is, you know the name John Van Sitters. I was like, oh my God, it's Nicholas, because I knew him when he was like a kid. He was the art PA and getting to work with this, and I didn't know that till the premiere. He's like, I'm Nicholas, his mom's married name. And I was like, wait, he says, I'm Nick so-and-so. And I went, wait, are you Nicholas so-and-so? He goes, yeah. Like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you since. She was like, I know. He's working in the industry. And I didn't even realize that was him at first. But this is, they're all looking at notes and reference. She had a wall, it was a video. She had a wall covered on one side of the stage that was like any fan would do during cosplayer sets for a fan film. She had just tons and tons and tons of reference from TNG and Voyager and First Contact up along the wall. And they were always, and here they're talking about colors for upholstery when they start to do the chairs. And they're, I mean, look, this is literally off the thing. And they were always making sure that they weren't looking at a picture from the experience, that it really was from the show, because they didn't just want to rebuild things. Anyway, this was a whole huddle they were having about looking at colors and picking stuff out. Anyway, here's a chair going together. We're getting there. And, installing them the same way they did then.
I love Picard's chair there.
Working, this guy, like, his whole project was the horseshoe.
Wow.
Different guys on the team had their thing, like the chair guys, the carpet guys, the handrail, and they were all like so proud when one, maybe two people at a time, because you talk about curves, and it was so amazing. Then the painters came in to try to match the wood grain, and there's a before and after, the original rail. They were even like matching the flow of the wood grain because it was painted in '87, and they were painting it too, fake wood grain. And there's a before and after picture that I didn't get in here where there's a knot hole that's interrupted on a seam in '87, and they got the same knot hole interrupted on the seam.
Oh, that's funny.
They just got, and little things that were, here's the upstairs carpet. That was a trick. And here's Jeff Mandel doing little Akutogram capsule labels with the little in-jokes on them everywhere. It was COVID, so when he did this, everybody else had to get off the stage. It was insane. They're doing all of this in COVID time. Now, they were getting toward the end there, and they were being lax about the masks. But when they first built everything for season 2, it was insane. And here's the lineup there again. And I don't know his name, but he was on the Modern crew. But you've got all Golden Era star. But Dave's the one that reached out with Terry's blessing. And Terry's like, hell yes, let's get Mike and Denise and Doug and Jeff and everybody in here. And there's the reverse view. And, And the other thing I just wanted to say real quick, it's 15, okay, just 2 minutes. So, the stellar cartography that Mike first set out the quadrants, right? and then Jeff worked on Enterprise and fleshed a lot of it out, and then I kind of got it handed off, and we did the big poster thing. So one thing about the modern shows, they've all been using that. Discovery started right off the bat in the Klingon War and had it. I've showed that before. This is the fucking hubris scene, right? And I was watching this go by, and I went, that looks like a map. Is that like the Klingons and the Romulans and the Federation? And so I finally got a hold of the graphic guy who's been a Portal 47 guest, and it's like, yes, it was his style interpretation of the map, but everything was in place. And I say that again, and then there's your quadrants. You all know this because I've been such a good teacher, right? Okay. And everything is, local space to us is down here, and there's the gamma. Okay. This is the ship chart Dave did for season 2. This is out of order, sorry. And this is a nice list of everybody. This is everybody who worked on the original Berman era shows and came back, and some of them you know the names really well, some not so much. But Monica worked with Jeff on the movies, on the Next Gen movies. There you go, Darren Document, in fact, Darren was working for them, and they got to do the 4K restoration of the motion picture project, and he had to leave this to go work on that. So here's the thing, this is the back end. So there's 2 or 3 places mentioned in Picard that Jeff did get located. This is free, the Real Star office, Alpha Doradus. So Free Cloud from season 1 is actually located. It's kind of up and behind and out there. And the whole idea of Picard was it's where the Fenris Rangers in 7 was being filled in place. It was in the border of the old Romulan Empire and the old neutral zone, which dissolved after the supernova. So anyway, this is the density of the chart right now, but there's some. So Picard season 3, when they're attacked, when the medical ship is attacked, they took the time to locate. So this is the thing that's on the charts there. This is the graphics that Jeff Mandel did. And so here's the top of the old neutral zone up here. And here's the supernova damage zone showing down here. So the Ryton system, where they go at first, is right here, right past Federation space. It is. So that was located. They haven't done the Fleet Museum and Rating 14, whatever. But anyway, we're starting to get it located. And there's an actual list from the thing with me. But just so you know, these top line names I mentioned, this is what Dave did. This is everybody in all the different avenues of the art department that worked on season 3. So when you're talking about these star names, and they're awesome, it's like that's how many, he always wanted to make sure to let you know, and everything, Greens. Cryptic Studios, so that Tom Marone and Hector Ortiz from STO, Star Trek Online, who had ships on, so they're in there, and visual effects and special effects, and sculpturing, like foaming the foam, and welding and plaster, and
That's cool.
And so now they're madly campaigning for Emmys of everything, and we'll see how we haven't heard about the nominations yet. So, but they put Sir Patrick and Amanda Plummer, who was Vatic,
Oh, yes.
in as a guest. They've done acting, they've done the show as a show, they've done visual effects and production art. And you can still find it on. Basically, it's like a coffee table book, digital.
She was an excellent villain.
Yeah, she was. It may be down now, but you can find the links. He basically did like a coffee table book as a campaign thing for getting the nomination for visual effects and art design and production.
And you can get a copy of that?
So real quick, what's going on with me? We bumped our big tour to next year. Come to the table and talk to me about that. Or if you're in LA, you can do a day tour with me. There's all my socials.
You gotta have Ask
You can ask me level. I've got a special. I've had 2 members sign up this weekend for Portal. That's awesome. We've got some specials happening. And there's all the stuff. And I think a lot of you heard. So Cadet Alice, this was her first weekend. I'm going to go see how she did in the kids' masquerade here in a minute. But anyway, come by the table. I'll be here all afternoon. This is kind of the letdown day, I know. But if I hadn't got to say hi to some of you, please come by and do so. And there's a QR code to get to my basic page. Are you on the next panel?
No.
Oh, good.
Just stand up.
Okay. This is like, even San Diego, where they're like Nazi about it, it's 50 minutes, and you have to be off stage at 10 till.
I'm in the next panel.
So there's 45 till. Oh.
I have a prodigy question.
Yes.
Because Because of the writer's strike, and apparently there's different rules with animation that they can still do the writing and stuff. Do you think they'll decide to put out Prodigy because when they're going to go on long and then they have to have something, they'll put out
First off,
Prodigy?
when you say different, yeah, the